To 50 million today. Today I want to talk about internal conflict. Isn't that a fun picture behind me? It's an alchemist. I looked up alchemist and got a picture of someone making gold. I want to talk for a minute about internal conflict. Now, we know what conflict is outside. It's when people disagree. And conflict is usually when it's more exciting than just disagreeing. They, have some negative stuff going on. And serious conflict, kinetic conflict, is like what we have going on in Europe, a war. And that can lead, obviously, to death and destruction of all kinds of stuff. But today I just want to talk about internal conflict. And this is really important to me, at least, and I think it's important to every single person who's trying to serve with their gifts, who's trying to add good to the world, because there's always opposition. There's always, I should do this, and I don't want to do this. I should probably do this. I don't want to. And let's start early in the morning. I should get up this morning and, I don't know, exercise, clean the yard, do the yard work, do the laundry, whatever it is, right? Or I should and I don't want to. Or I should call so and fix this problem. And, I don't really want to. Or, I should go downstairs and I say downstairs because we have a bedroom upstairs, but if you're on one level, I should go in the other room and really work on that project. All those are examples of internal conflict. So I want to talk about where that comes from and what to do about it, because internal conflict, where you think you should do something and then you don't, or you have to fight with yourself, that causes such a waste of energy. Do you have internal conflict? Put a comment in the chat right now if you have internal conflict about what it is. Now, why do you suppose we have this internal conflict where part of us thinks we should do one thing and part of us doesn't want to, or one voice says, do this, no, do that. And we talk about an angel on the shoulder and a devil on the shoulder. And often we talk about it in terms of right, something that's right and not right, or good and not so good. That's always the case. And in the write-up, I talked about a period of my life when I had a lot of struggle with cocaine. And there was, I can't tell you how many times, went on for years, where I said, I shouldn't do this. And I knew, I felt at least, I shouldn't do a certain thing, and I did anyway. And, that conflict was such a pervasive part of life. Now, substance abuse is a real extreme example, or maybe not. Maybe it's food abuse, or maybe it is other kinds of things, or television, or social media, or some other kind of numbing or distracting thing that we use to keep us from doing what we feel like we ought to do. Now, if you are relaxing and you've decided to take the day to relax or to recreate or to have a relationship building thing with your family or friends or spouse or business people or whatever, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that time when there's conflict in you. I want to do this and I don't want to. I should do this and I don't. I want to know where you think that comes from. And then, more importantly, I'd like to talk about how to get rid of it, because I lived for so many years with conflict on all kinds of levels. So, for example, back in my 30s, when I got really heavy and I was way overweight, I had a conflict about food. I had a conflict about exercise. I had a conflict about getting up, and I had all kinds early in the morning so I could exercise. And I had all kinds of stories and reasons why I couldn't do what I thought I was supposed to do, right? And that conflict is part of life, and learning to manage that conflict, or learning to do things, eliminate the conflict. I won't even say do things anyway. Some people talk about fighting through. There's a white knuckle way to handle that, where you argue with yourself and you sort of beat yourself up, or you go get someone to talk you into something, and that's one way to handle it. It's not very long term. and it's not very effective. And you know that because at the new year, which just was a couple of weeks ago, I guess the new Chinese New Year is coming up here pretty soon. But anyway, when you start a new year, new quarter, new month, and you make a new goal, but it isn't really what you are, what you want to be inside, even though you say you do, you're setting up that conflict. And that can be in areas of health, wealth, relationships, or anything else. So where does that come from? Well, I'm not going to say this is the only answer, but as a possibility, it comes from not being truthful with yourself about who you are or about what you want. Now, let's look at some examples. If I say to myself, I want to be a good student, but I believe that I'm not very smart or not very capable, then even though I say I want to be a good student, there's a conflict there because I believe something different. So this show that I'm doing every day is about helping you discover and serve with your gifts. If you don't believe you have gifts, then that's going to be really hard. If you believe you have some, but they're not valuable, that's going to be hard. If you believe you have gifts and maybe they're valuable, but not in a way that could let you create a business if you wanted to, then that's going to be hard. So the fundamental thing to work on to get rid of that internal conflict is what you believe about yourself. And one way to say that I talk an awful lot about, is who you are being at a given moment. Am I being, or are you being a doubtful, frightened person? Am I being a bold, loving person? Who am I being? And who I'm being comes from what I believe. And here's the great part about this. You can make choices and you can eliminate all your internal conflict. That might sound like, it does sound like a bold claim. And it would have been for me for many years. Today, one of my statements in my PTAC is that I have no internal conflict or withholding in my being. And I don't mean my being, I mean my being, how I'm showing up in the world. And the question is, how did I get there, or how can you get there? And the answer is a little at a time. It doesn't just change, especially since I had, or you might have a long habit of these other kinds of stories. I don't believe I could have done that by myself. So eliminating the habits, the negative habits that I had, I needed help. Creating the positive habits that I now have, I needed help. But the good thing is that help's available. Now, here's what I know about you, whoever you are, whenever you're listening to this. I know you have divine gifts. I know that whatever barriers you have in your life, whatever stories you have about yourself, you can get rid of them right now and have no internal conflict. No times when you think, oh, I should do this. Oh, I want to do this. Imagine getting up in the morning because you're just thrilled to. There's no conflict. You get up to face the day because you're excited and stoked. You might be listening to me laughing, saying that's impossible. Well, I used to think so too, but I don't anymore, and I'm not. I don't have that internal conflict. And working toward that is maybe the most important thing we do. And here's step one. We have to decide who we are. I'll give you a simple example. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about some difficult questions, and every answer seemed to be, well, it depends. No, it doesn't depend. You can make declarations about who you're being. So, for example, you could say, I am honesty. I speak only truth. You could say that. And if a circumstance came up, and this is always the one that comes, what if someone asks you if you like my outfit or something? You don't have to lie. You can speak truth. You can choose not to answer. You can say, well, that's not the best one I've ever seen you wear. There's lots of ways to say something that is not withholding. But you know what the truth is? You could look them in the eyes and say how beautiful they are, because that's always true. You right now, I don't need your permission to love you. I was watching part of a video episode early of somebody's earlier today, and here was a question. Do you dislike someone without knowing them? And here's a good example of that. There's a lot of divisiveness in the United States political system, right wing, left wing, anti Trumpers, anti this, anti that. And people that talk about that, they automatically don't like someone on the other side of the spectrum, even if they don't know them. They automatically don't like them. Well, if you think about that, that's crazy. But if we do that, then why can't I love someone without knowing them? Why can't I choose to have no conflict about loving someone, even just about one little thing? I say, or you could say, I love every person, even if I don't know them. Why? Because I can. I can choose to do that, just like we see people not liking others, trolls on the internet, people ragging on people, or politics and stuff. So here's what I want you to think about. I want you to be aware of internal conflict, which is what we're talking about today, which is when you think I should do this and then you do something else. Pay attention to the internal conflict that you have over the next day, 24 hours, and just write it down and see where it comes from. And then ask the question, what do I believe that's creating this conflict? What do I believe that's creating this unhappiness or this boundary bashing in my soul? Because what I know is two things. One, you don't have to have it. That I know for sure. You can live without internal conflict. And two, what I also know is it wastes a ton of creativity, love, and energy. Can you imagine your life if you had no conflict? You had a pure and single-minded purpose about what you were doing or who you are being in the world. That is a powerful place. And you know what I know? I know you can have it. My commitment in this goal that drives all these videos is to help 50 million people to discover their own gifts and then to serve with those gifts, because we're happiest when we're loving and serving each other. That might mean building a business. It might mean all those peripheral things. But the core is recognizing your divinity, who you are, being loved, being willing to just serve, just to love, because then you live in a place of joyful power and there's no conflict. There's no negative feeling inside. It's a powerful and beautiful place to live. It's an impossibly great place to create from. I give you all the encouragement I can and love. And even if I don't know you, I love you anyway. And I invite you, if I can help you in any way, to discover your gifts, to serve with your gifts, to lift up your heart. Reach out. We'll see you tomorrow on the road to 50 million.